this evening to our workshop. You don't have to be a techie to be in tech. We're going to have a very interesting conversation today on transferable skills, non-technical roles, and ways to really break into the tech industry without having the traditional techie background. I myself, I'm an example of someone. I work at Microsoft. I'm a content developer, and I don't have a technical background myself. And so we feel like it's a really important message to evangelize and bring education and awareness around. With that, we're very honored to have my partner and colleague, Ms. Kwamara Thompson, do our workshop, facilitate our workshop this evening. And with that, I will let her go ahead and get going. Actually, I will say Kwamara is also the founder of I'm a Black Woman, Yes, I Matter. And she has Tech LLC as well, where she helps founders and startup entrepreneurs in a variety of ways, essentially to have success and get started on their entrepreneur and tech journey. So with that, Kwamara Thompson.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everyone being here. Let's give it up for Tamante and for Geek for holding this space and allowing us to have these types of conversations. And one of the reasons I got really excited about coming here today is that technology always has felt inaccessible, I think, to a lot of people. And so what we want to do is demystify what it means to be a tech person, what it means to be tech literate, what it means to be digital literacy literate, right? And understand that there are a variety of ways that you can be in tech and not necessarily be a techie person. And conversely, to be a tech-centric person and work in other industries, right? That's the converse that a lot of times you also don't really speak or talk about. So I'm going to talk just a little bit mainly about Tech LLC, Be Human, we changing ecosystems and changing mindsets. So Tech stands for Thompson Education Consulting, but we use technology as a way to drive sustainable change within the organizations that we work with. So people always like, how did you get into this? How did this get started? You have no tech. Everyone knows I have no tech background. If you look at my phone, it's cracked. It's like from the early 2000s. It's not a flip phone, but damn near close to. And I'll tell you what. So I used to be a teacher in the classroom, high school English teacher back in Newark, New Jersey. If you guys know anything about Newark, it is a high urban area. And I worked at an alternative high school. So basically, it was like the worst school, considered one of the worst schools in the state. And I was the English teacher. And in order to get your high school diploma, you had to pass my class. You had to pass my class two ways, by actually passing the class, but also by taking the state exam and passing the English portion of the state exam. And so when I first got to that school, I was a newish teacher, and I had colleagues, especially older teachers, who would say to me, man, these kids don't care. You're going to find a lot of these kids not going to show up. They're not going to do their work. They don't give a F, basically, is what they were trying to tell me. And I was like, young, optimistic, I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I don't believe it. I don't believe the stories. I don't believe that narrative. Let me actually figure out what's going on with my students. And so what I found out was, and so I should explain that like most of my English classes were literally first thing in the morning, like 7:30 in the morning, 8:15, 8:30, like 9 o'clock, boom, boom, boom. And when I started talking to my students, I realized something really major. We're talking about an urban environment. We're talking about students who come from families that are disadvantaged socioeconomically. Oftentimes, if you come from a family like that, you have to work because you are a financial contributor to the household. And or a lot of our students also were homeless. They were responsible for themselves financially, period. You're a teenager. What kind of jobs can you guys get? Just in general, like back in the day, think back in the day in the early 2000s, what kind of job could teenagers get? McDonald's. Okay, fast food. What else? Okay, well, we live in an urban jungle, so not really mowing lawns. But I see where Patak grew up. But okay, basically like fast food, your retail, whatever. You guys know anything about Jersey? There's a lot of malls, so you can get a lot of retail jobs out at the mall. Well, these kids don't drive. So they take 2-3 buses, so they go to school because they have to go to school. They get out of school 2:30, 3 o'clock. They got to go downtown. They got to catch their bus. Oftentimes it's 2-3 buses to get to the local mall. The mall that takes me only 10 minutes to get to takes them like an hour because they got to take 2-3 buses to get there. And then they're going to close which means that, yeah, the stores are closed at 10 o'clock, right? But they have to be there cleaning up inventory, et cetera, et cetera. They might not leave until 11 o'clock, midnight. They might not get home until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then we want them to be ready to learn in English class at 7:30 in the morning. And then tell them that there's something wrong with them and their ability to learn and their passion for learning. And I said, no, that's not right. So this is the early 2000s. I start to think, I have a problem. How can I solve this problem? So what I did was I created the first virtual classroom. It was so early on that Google did not have a Google Classroom. It didn't have a Google Suite. Only thing Google had was Google Docs. Anybody remember that? Just when Google Docs first came out, it was the only thing they had. They didn't have PowerPoint, they didn't have Sheets, they had Google Docs. So I created stuff on Google Docs, and then there was the old version of Blackboard. And I figured out how to marry the two together, and I created a virtual classroom. Because of the success of that virtual classroom and students opting in and taking the time out to say, Ms. Thompson, what did I miss today? Like, I read this lesson, I have some questions. We were talking back and forth, all kinds of ways. I also had a student who didn't even know how to read. This is a whole other story. He's a senior in high school and reads on a first grade level. I mean, it was insane. We would talk to each other through recorded microphones. I would read stuff and then he would respond back to me. That's how I could get him through school so that he could feel and engage in the conversation with his peers. But anyway, that's a whole nother, I have so many stories about the inequities that we had to go through and the problems that we had to solve. But because I decided to do that, I was then in task of the superintendent of the school district was seeing that my attendance rates were up, kids were coming to school, our state exam, we were blowing it out the water. We brought in AP programming, okay? These were kids that no one thought could do anything. Go to AP programming, they're going to NJIT. Now some of them even went to MIT. Like these kids were going places, all right? And they're like, what did you do? I said, well, I just got to learn my students. And I used the power of technology so that they could interact with me, not on my time, not on your time, but on their time. And think about students who can go to work, understand all of that, and then still take the time out to interact with my virtual class, which was not fancy by any means or stretch of the imagination. So the superintendent brought me up and was like, can you help us do that across the district? And so I did, and I started doing that work. So we started bringing in blended learning technologies, we started bringing in data-driven instruction, and hence the foundation for Tech was born. When people saw the work that we were doing in Newark, then people were like, can you do that for us? And so I started to do this for educational systems, charter management organizations across the United States. One of my biggest clients in education is the US Department of Ed. But if you ask me, do I know how to code? No. I know no idea how to put a website together. Couldn't tell you. I'm like, no clue. I'm like, Patah, can you help me out? You know, I was like, we had lunch one time. I'm like, here's Am I lying? But this is a company that makes well into the 6-7 things. So successful, in fact, that we created a financial arm that we give back into the community. And we do a lot of angel investing back into the community because of the success that we were able to do. As a tech organization, meaning that we bring in blended learning technology to make things happen easier and seamlessly. When the pandemic happened, people also started bringing us in to do a lot of virtual learning environments. So at that point in time, we started working with a lot of Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies, people who had no idea how to manage their time, manage their staff, who was disparate, right? They were at their homes, they didn't know what to do. And so we were like, literally, I couldn't tell you the amount of Zoom professional developments I had to like put together and workshops and this, that, and the other. But that's technology. The utilization of technology to streamline operations and systems, that's technology. That's why I'm a tech company, because we utilize tech in order to get ish done and get it done well and effectively to the point where we have 100% referral rate and a 90% retention rate. And the reason why it's not more than 90% is because if I do my job well, in 3 years, you should not need me anymore. You should be able to have everything you need in-house. Everyone is developed in-house, and now we can move on to the next one. But the 100% referral rate is super important because I want you to talk about the amazing stuff that we do here at Tech LLC, Be Human. And so that's the other piece that we also talk about. It's not just technology. It's like, how do we think about the human design thinking? So I know a lot of techies now because I've been steeped in this world now 20 years. I'm not trying to be funny, but some of y'all that we stay behind the computer, you know how to talk all that code, but you don't know how to talk to people, right? You don't know how to manage folks. And sometimes you don't want to. You're like, listen, I don't want to be bothered. Like, I want to be here. I want to bust out my Python. I want to bust out my code. I want to bust out my SQL. I want to do what I got to do. Look at all these amazing things I'm creating. But what we need is other people who can be the translator. Oftentimes, those of us who are not technologists, we can be the translator. We can be the bridge between the person who really enjoys talking to the computer and then translating what the awesomeness that's happening on the computer to your everyday person, right? Making those bite-sized, chunkable, easy things to use and utilize and manage. I always think of, and I talk a lot about the phone because the phone has revolutionized our lives. And I don't know how old everybody is, but I'm a woman of a certain age. And when I was first, when I first got my car, I got a car for my 17th birthday. My parents got me a car. And my mom is a retired physician, she's a retired doctor. So when I took the car out, she would give me her Zach Morris cell phone. Y'all know who Zach Morris was, Saved by the Bell? Oh my God. So it's like this big, clunky, like flip phone. It was like huge, like this. And I had to put in a code. And she was like, only use this in emergencies because it was $100 a minute if I had to use it, right? That was, I don't know, about 20, maybe a little bit more, 20-some years ago. In 20 years, the phone has completely revolutionized the way that we think, operate. It's actually changed our entire user system. If we think of the globe as a user system, as a user database, as a framework of sorts, the phone has completely revolutionized the way that our minds are wired and the ways that we are framed, to the point that our new generation of kids are looking at us like their brains are already going a mile a minute. They're faster than us. They process information much more fast than we do. But I bring this up to say that when the phone first came out, people weren't really all that excited about it. Like, I really need this phone. Like, just the payphone, put in my little quarters. Like, we got a beeper. Those who remember we got the beeper. They got the beeper. My friends are going to beat me. Boom, 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 boom. But what happened was they probably realized they needed translators, people who are not technologists, to say to the people, no, this will revolutionize the way that we interact with each other. So you need those, what I like to call the middle folks, the translator. We're learning a whole new language out here. This language is tech literacy. And we need people who can translate that. So there are many of you who have transferable skills here, who may not be or even excited about sitting in front of the computer coding all day long. One thing I don't like is sitting on my behind and being in front of the computer, okay? I said that when I first came up here, we're going to be walking around, be up here. I'm going to have a lot of energy because that's how I am, okay? And so while I sometimes have to do that, I prefer to be out and about and doing things. And then there are other people who love to sit in front of the computer and like really zhuzh out with that. That's not you. Doesn't mean that you have to be that way to get into this industry called tech, right? And what I think is so amazing about the revolution of technology is the same of the industry tech. It's the same thing about the revolution of the cell phone. At one point in time, only really, really rich people could get cell phones, right? Now everybody can get a phone. No matter what your socioeconomic background is, everybody got a phone. Actually, it doesn't even matter how old you are. Most people have phones. Kids these days have phones. The same thing is now becoming true for technology. When we first started talking about what's going on in Silicon Valley, what's going on here, it felt like an accessibility issue that only a certain demographic with a certain socioeconomic background, with a certain educational background, can access this technology, can be access these careers that put them on a wealth building platform. But what we're finding, though, is that the tech industry isn't really an industry in silo. Technology, like reading, math, writing, is now a skill that we all kind of need to know. And I actually think the tech industry, as it stands, is becoming, and people are not going to like what I was, but I think it's becoming a little obsolete. Because in fact, at Microsoft, to Monte's point, at Google, at all these other places, what you need are people who are actually non-technologists, who could be in your marketing department, who could be in your sales department, who's running your HR, who's thinking about your legal aid, who's thinking about your compliance issues, all of that. And conversely, when you're talking about, especially like on the entrepreneurial side, or if you're talking about healthcare, if you're talking about education, I mean, literally almost any industry that you can think of, they're being revolutionized by the idea of putting in technology into those spaces. So now what we're actually creating is an ecosystem of accessibility versus a problem of who's in the room and who gets access to the room. Now, I say that, I'm not to say that we're there yet. I just think we're moving there. But I'll tell you, when people ask me to sit and talk on a panel, and they're like, we want the tech CEOs to come out, I'm usually the only woman. So that's still the case. I'm usually the only Black woman if there is another woman on the panel. When we're talking about it from an investment perspective, from an angel investor perspective, again, there are not a lot of people who look like those of us in this room. So that's another reason why I always want to make sure I bring up the angel investing piece, because it's so important that people see that we can invest back into a space that we may not have. I don't want to say I don't have knowledge. It's not true. I mean, at this point in time, after 20 plus years, I have lots of knowledge in the industry itself. I just don't know the how. That makes sense, right? I understand the ecosystem, but I can't tell you how to Python, how to do JavaScript, how to SQL. I know the words. I know generally what they're talking about, but I couldn't do it on my own, right? And that's cool, because then I hire someone who actually can talk that talk for me, because that's the important piece. So I'm gonna stop there because I like an interactive kind of thing. I was playing back and forth about, am I gonna do a presentation and talk about this? And I'm like, nah, it's a Thursday. We've had a long day. I'm not here to teach no class. We're here to have conversation. How can I help you use those transferable skills? Do you have any thoughts around it? Are you finding some trouble spots? If anyone wants to get in a hot seat, like, hey, I've got these skill sets. Where do you think I can go into the tech industry? Or vice versa, I've got these skill sets. I'm finding trouble breaking into what we know as the tech industry. Are there other avenues that I can do to try to help other people out and get some coins in my pocket? Because right, we all need to eat.
How does the angel investing work? Do you profit off of probably the businesses you invest in, or can
Yes.
you talk about that?
Yeah. So, obviously every deal is different. There is always a profit. There's always the hope that a profit will come from that, right? It's an investment, meaning that if I like and I should also say for me, it's very important that you also have a social impact component to the work that you're doing. So that's why I basically call it angel investing. I look to see how much you're trying to raise, how much of that myself and or the company want to bring in at, and then what is the return on investment and what are the terms. I'm usually okay with a 3 to 5 year term, meaning that you don't have to pay me back until 3 to 5 years. The payback obviously is the investment and the percentage of return that we want. I usually, unless you would like me to do not do an equity stake. And I say likely to is because usually you also want me to be an advisor. And so I also advise people on their earned revenue, their strategic thinking, their partnerships. There's one thing that you'll know about me is I believe in collaboration. I believe in building ecosystems. That is a great model for any business, right? You need partners. You can't do this in silo, but it's a great earned revenue model. Not every company has one stream of income or one product line. So we talk about Apple, for example. Yes, they have the iPhone, but obviously they also have the MacBook. They have the AirPods. They have the Apple Watch, etc. So they've created an ecosystem. Let's think about this for a second. An ecosystem of fake need, because you don't really need all of these things, but you want them to make your life easier. But how do they do that? How do they translate that information to you? How? I'm just asking. This is not a trick question. How do you know anything about what's going on with Apple products? Huh? Their marketing team. Are their marketing team technologists? No. Their marketing team knows how to talk to people, knows what's going to sell. They know how to make that drive. They know how to do those. Oh, we going like Nike does. We gonna drop the next thing, and that everybody gets excited for it, right? We're gonna get excited for it. And even if you're not even excited about that part, if you're an investor, you're looking at your stocks like, okay, boom, boom, boom. It's about to drop. My stock should be going up. Da 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 da. I mean, lots of things that we're thinking about. So the folks who are driving that are not technology people. Those are regular. I hate to say regular. Those are human beings who may not have a technology background, but are working for one of the biggest tech conglomerates and are creating the sustainable need for that conglomerate to exist, to make our lives easier. Oh, okay. You were just agreeing. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, let's talk about some of the roles that you can have in a quote unquote tech company that is not tech based, but has transferable skills. You guys can just call them out. We obviously just talked about one, which was marketing. What else is there?
Artificial intelligence.
Okay, so prompt engineering and artificial intelligence. I was about to say, do you guys know what that is?
But it's basically what you tell it to do, what you prompt it to do in order to get your intended result. So there's actually a way to do it. And now it's a role that's pretty paid. 6 figures and up.
So basically, you need to know how to write a question or a sentence and put in keywords in order to get the correct response back from the AI technology, right? So it's not just as easy as, oh, I want a presentation on, or you know, let's say you're all looking for job. I'll just put me a resume together that highlights my skill sets. You can't just say that. You'll have to say like, what are the actual skills? You know, what are the metrics that show that I am actually successful at this particular skill? And then you build your resume off of that using the AI. That is not actually an intuitive process. If you don't know how to like think really strategically in those ways, that is not easy. So that is actually like a very clear skill that some folks will have, obviously over others. But if that's a skill that you do have, you are sort of like, I'm not saying that, but like the interrogator in your group of friends. You're the one who could really get, okay, I hear that, sis. But what really happened again? And then you get that real story. Okay, that might be a job for you. That might be the transferable skill that you have that can now bring you into prompt engineering.
Other roles would like be sales.
Sales, absolutely. Sales are major. In fact, no technology company could really exist without their sales team for the most part. I mean, that's
People do business with people.
so.
Computers.
It's true. You have to be super relational. So the sales team is huge.
It's also really lucrative. They get bonus from a lot of like at Microsoft. They get quarterly bonuses. And I've heard some of the bonuses, 6-figure bonuses. Bonus style quarterly with that breakdown. That's just someone who's able to communicate and get people to understand stuff that I should say, be able to explain stuff to people in a simple way so they can understand it without scaring them from
Right. In a simple way, and also makes them understand that like you need this product. You don't, I mean, sometimes you buy stuff that you want, but when you're talking from an organizational perspective, you usually are buying it because your company needs it for some way, for some reason, right? It's there to solve a problem. So if you can be the problem solver and you're like, hey, y'all, I'm the solution. That's really what the salesperson is looking for. You know,
Lawyers.
Yeah, the lawyers. But that's why I want to go.
Accounting.
I want to go back to the sales real quick because how many of you guys have taken sales calls for whatever reason? Like you're thinking you're in the market for XYZ, and you go and you say, man, I want to see what's out there, and you end up taking a sales call. What's one of the first questions that they ask you?
Are you comfortable talking to people?
No, I mean like you're like going to get someone's trying to sell you something. What's one of the first questions that the person who's trying to sell to you asks you? Can you tell me a little bit about your problem? Because they're trying to figure out how they are the solution. Yeah, they don't want to get to the money part until you're already sold, right? I mean, that's the truth. They want to feel like you're about to say yes, and then it's like, Mom, great. So it's this amount of money, right? That's the trick to sales. They want you to feel like, man, I got this solution, and boom. So that's timing. So someone who's good at sales, who's relational, because you do have to build your relationships and keep those relationships going, but also understands how to solve people's problems. Those are the skill sets you need to be a successful salesperson, I think across the board, but certainly when it comes to technology. I heard you say tech lawyers. So obviously we need people who are going to protect us. So if you're a big conglomerate, your lawyers do all kinds of stuff, all your contractual work. They're looking at all of your acquisitions, your mergers, your IPO, blah, 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 blah. If you're a smaller type company, an entrepreneur, you want your lawyers to be there to help you with your trademark, your making sure that you have your intellectual property agreements. If you're into NDAs, I have my theories about them, but whatever. So you have your NDA piece. You have people out there who are going to make sure that even the small agreements that you have are set in stone. So if you're partnering up with someone like, hey, best friend, y'all want to start this business together? And you're like, yeah, best friend, this sounds great. And you do that with no background or no legal representation, things can go awry. So you want to make sure that that's set in stone. So yeah, your lawyers are important. I heard you say tax accountants. Yes, your accountants are extremely important. The person who's going to be doing your taxes, all of that is super important. And they're doing work for technologists, for tech companies, right? A lot of people have clients. I know people who are just tech lawyers. I'm like, what do you do? I only work with tech companies, and I'm the lawyer. What does that mean? Oh, just contract stuff. I'm like, okay, great. I see the lawyer over there smirking a little bit. Am I telling a lie? I'll tell you no lie. Okay, what other things? I mentioned something else about HR.
Content creation.
Thank you. Content creation. So the person who actually is going to create the content. Melissa, do you mind if I use you for a second? Okay, so we were talking earlier about UI, UX design. The UI, UX experience is so critical. So do you guys know what UI, UX is? Everyone nodding their head? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so UI, UX is obviously about the user interface, the user design, the user experience. Do you have to be a technologist to create the UI, UX?
I did it without even knowing I was really doing it. When my first class up, it was an app that connected teachers and students through push notifications. And we outsourced all of the coding, of course, but as far as all the aspects of where what was and where it should be and what should be pressed when, I pretty much came up with the blueprint for all of that. And I didn't realize, so I look back. Wow.
You did a user
That's what I
experience.
was doing. Yeah.
Yep.
That was actually kind of my first real hardcore tech experience was that was one of them was in creating the class.
Right. So that's about your user experience. And again, this is not to be funny, but a lot of tech savvy people are not the best at relating widely to human beings, right? By having their best friend or whatever. And so oftentimes are excited about the technology that they created, but not worried so much about the actual user experience to the folk who are not as excited about the technology. They want an easy user experience, right? And I learned this too, because I am trying to tell schools, how do we help teachers create a technology ecosystem? But if you expect a teacher to sit here and learn an entire program in order to roll that out to a bunch of students, you're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. They got enough stuff going on. We got to start, like, what's the least thing in the fruit? Does all the API work together? Like, do I just click a button and everything happens well? Or do I actually have to be the one who's uploading every student name? Like, no, can we do a batch upload? I mean, these are the kinds of things that the user, the UI, the UX person thinks about. No, this is clunky. If someone is taking 3 seconds, I think it's something like that, they take 3 to 5 seconds having to do something, they're shut down and not want to use your app no more. It's like, I don't want to use this program. So the UI, UX is super important. That's why you hear so many entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, I need a UI, UX person. So you think you need a tech degree for that, but no, you don't need it. What you need to do is say, this experience is awful for users. Here's the way that we can make it better for the user experience. That way we get more adaptability, more retention, more stickiness, more people. And these are all words I'm using in the tech world, but this is true for more times that we go back to the same app over and over again. Ever wonder why some of the same social media apps look exactly the same? It's because we are programmed to think of it to look a certain way. It's easier if all of them do the exact same thing and operate the exact same way, because if we have to change our mindset, we will not adapt quickly to the new thing, right? We've already been indoctrinated. hate to say it, but we've been indoctrinated to move in a certain way as it relates to doing certain things, right? I mean, the kids today would be upset. They knew that, you know, there was a time where we had to hit the button ABC to put C in. You remember that? And they're like, what are you talking about? Now they're doing like text to speech. They're not even worried about texting anymore. They're like, let me talk into this phone so you know what's going on.
I'm just gonna add, like, designers are super, like, the bridge between the product development and the idea of the business. They're the bridge between that. How people feel about the app, how they like communicate through the app. I think that's super important to like an engineer to think about that.
Right. He's thinking, mother, and also it might sound like I'm being disparaging against engineers. No, what the engineers are creating is amazing. They've built the foundation, right? But why do I buy a house? It's not because it's a great foundation. I buy the house because it looks good. It makes me feel a certain way.
Designers think about how the brain and the eye, like this perception of speed is more important than databases and like how the tech behind it. It's
Right.
perception and about like how quickly do your eyes blink? Oh, like the website got a little less than a minute, like less than
That's right.
60 milliseconds. They're thinking milliseconds.
Mhm.
So like it gets scientific on the design side to really drive people from prospecting to customers.
I love the fact that and we talk about this a lot, the analytical side. So if you are someone who's an analyst and you're having a hard time getting a job in tech, everyone needs analysts. Everyone is looking at their metrics as it relates to email conversion rates, as it relates to
SEO.
social media marketing, as it relates to SEO. What are the customers doing? What's the demographics behind their customers? Who is staying with them? Who's referring them? Who's coming back for more? Who's coming back for more and more and more? So like data analysis is huge. If you have a data analysis degree, you don't necessarily need to just stick with technology and do big data. You can go and offer your services to entrepreneurs or smaller businesses who need a lot of those metrics in order to your point, to be successful, to be sustainable, and to scale, right? These are the pieces that like you can come in and literally like, I can help you analyze what this means, right? Why did this particular reel? I remember someone broke down, they were like, so on a Monday morning, people love this inspirational thing that you do, but you got to talk it. You can't say it. You can't just have it up there. You have to like actually talk into the video because that's when you're getting the most engagement. And it happens between this time and that time. And da 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 da. I'm like, okay. So we like sit down and we like think through all of those pieces. And I say we because I have a team because Mark can't do it all. Right? But we have a team of folks who are like literally their job is to be like, here's what's happening on the back end. And now let's think about a strategy and an actionable plan to address what is working well, and then where are the places that need to be tweaked. You could be that person. If you're a person who likes to analyze, that could be a role for you, not just in the technology space, but also in all spaces where every company, I don't care who you are, every company has to have some kind of website and social media, digital marketing presence. What's the first thing you do when you hear about anybody's company? You go to their website. Do you have an Instagram? you write get in there. That's it.
Also, testers as well.
People who test the product.
People, the UI, UX percent of the product.
I love that. Yeah, people who test the products. That's great.
I know this is the theme of the Scrum job for project management. Are they the theme?
Scrum is a type of project management. It's like being agile. The way that you manage projects, right? So, and so those of you guys who are more techie focused, please don't let me misspeak. But as far as I know, Scrum and Agile is a process around how you project manage. Project management, to your point, though, is major. But that's a skill set that you can use almost anywhere, anyhow. As someone who hires a lot of consultants, I love project managers. Oh my God, they keep my life. They're like, Kwamara, here it is. It's all laid out. I'm like, wonderful. How often do we need to meet? Because like, check. Life is great. And then they'll use, and so we can talk about some of the tools, right? They'll use Trello, Asana. What are some of the other project management tools? I'm drawing a blank on. Thank you, Xero. So your engineer, I will say the techs are very good at like who are all the project management tools that you could use, because most of them I know through the engineers that I talk to. They're like, you got to do this project management tool. And I'm like, great.
It's Notion one.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
Now, I'm
Look
plugging
at
Microsoft Loop.
Microsoft Loop. And listen, if these terms are making you feel like I have no idea what anyone just said in these last 2 minutes, it's basically how do you manage an event, a project, product line. It's all about a project management. So like a product doesn't just show up into the ether. There's like a roadmap and someone who is designing and thinking about what are all the steps to make the product, test the product, bring the product to market, bring it back, revise, test, and do it again. And that happens continuously around all kinds of stuff. If I'm throwing an event, right? Tabasha and I are working together on a conference that happens every year. We're already thinking like we need to start thinking about the roadmap, the project management. So this just doesn't happen in technology. It happens in all industries, in all businesses. People need folks who are like going to organize around a particular goal, whether that's a product launch, whether that is a project that you're doing, whether that's an event launch, whether that's a partnership launch that you're doing with someone else. Right. So this is perfect. I'm so glad you said that, because yesterday I had this conversation with someone who was like, man, I'm really good at event planning. I'm thinking about getting into tech. Wait, Kwamara, how do you think I should get into it? And I was like, project management. Boom. Said it just like that. Just start saying that you're a project manager, because you are. If you're an event planner, it means you know how to logistically work through all of the things. You are putting all of the pieces together and then making it happen. It's not just that you put it together. You're actually making sure that we're moving through the steps and you're holding people accountable. And you don't mind having those difficult conversations like, listen, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. Let's have a conversation about that. What can I do to support you? What members of the team need to come in and support you to make sure that happens? That's the beauty. That's why the project manager is usually someone different than the person who runs the organization, because the CEO is really thinking about earned revenue, and you're specifically worried about how we're going to get this product launched.
So I worked for 4 weeks for the boot camp, but I don't have a tech background either. And I feel like any kind of administration or operational kind of role, I work with partnerships, I work with student support, like all those kind of roles are not tech backgrounds. But
Yes.
even if it's not a school, other companies have their equivalent.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I mean, obviously, you need anyone who runs operations, your office. Well, we don't really do office managers anymore, but still, where's the location that you guys are using, whether it's even a co-working space. That I remember someone was like, I'm a interior decorator, but I want to start working in the tech field. I'm like, I'll just start talking to tech companies and start decorating their office. This is not hard. And people, I wasn't trying to be funny, but like it's kind of not, because you need a space. When you walk into a space that is your workplace, you feel a certain type of way. And if you feel good, you're going to be more productive. And that's better for the bottom line of the company versus like if it looks stale, it looks like I'm in a hospital, I might be like, listen, I don't know how often I'm going to be here in this space. So the person who can help design and really think about all the things that make people happy. So that's another user experience that is happening in real life user experience. Those people can come together, design what your office space looks like or what your conference space looks like, et cetera, as you're moving forward. So I'm glad you said that. Operations, of course, like they make the world go round. When we did have offices, I had one of the best office managers. And like, as soon as she knew exactly what everyone liked in the office. She had it stocked in the fridge. She always had a smile on her face. She knew you, and obviously know your birthday. And these things seem small, but they actually very much matter when it comes to creating an environment where people want to work with you and be productive with you. So if you're someone who's just like that, you're like really thoughtful, you're giving, you like to make people feel good, an office manager position might be a great position for you. And they're essential. Now, unfortunately, not every company sees it that way, but I do. I think every office manager is extremely essential to the role of and the productivity of a company. And then you said something else. Oh, education. A lot of these tech products, this is not to be funny, but most of the tech products that come out, you need what on it usually?
Training.
There are I can't think of that one that does not have a how-to video somewhere. a lot on it. You can be the person who creates the how-to video, right? That's content. right? You could be the educator, you could be the trainer, you could be the person who trains people on how to use this particular platform. We think that things are that everybody knows how to do everything, and not everybody does. You could be the person who knows how to train. You could be the customer experience rep, meaning that you're the person who they talk to, whether that's through the chat bot, whether that's through an email, whether that's through a phone call. I don't think people really talk that much on the phone anymore. With a chat bot and email experience, that could be you. That's your customer. You're under the customer success team, which is essential because not only do we want new customers, we want our customers to continue to come back. And that's what we call stickiness. Now, another place we call it retention, but really in the tech field, it's called stickiness. How sticky is your product? How often do people come back to it, essentially? I'm doing pretty well, right? For not being a technologist. Boom, boom, boom.
Because when it comes down to it, all companies are, every company is almost a tech company. Like I said, and really every company is a sales company too. No matter what, like even what I do, I'm not selling, but I'm selling. Right? I'm selling our M365 products. Use product.
Right.
I have a quota, right? But it's the same thing. We're all selling.
I mean, that's true.
Selling,
We're all selling
products.
ourselves. Right. I mean, we're always selling. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but I had this course that I did called Selling Yourself, which could sound prostitutish, but it's not. But it was mainly just really about like personal branding. Even if you're doing like, this is like really for high school students, what was the brand? How do you want people to think of you? Even if you're just thinking about your resume or a LinkedIn profile, you're trying to hop into your career, how are you selling yourself? How are you presenting yourself to the world? So at all points in time, we are selling ourselves. And people receive it or they don't, and they receive it in different ways. They receive it as friendship. They can receive it in a relationship setting. They can receive it in a professional setting. And then you move that into like, are you successful as a business person? Obviously, how do you know if you're successful? It's your bottom line, your earned revenue. Actually, sorry, maybe rephrase it. It's not really about your earned revenue. It's about your profitability. I can earn revenue but not be profitable.
I just wanted to mention to the audience around when I met Kwamara like months ago, like we clicked at PS Social, and one of the, as an entrepreneur, like one of the products Kwamara created was there was this event that happens every year called Essence Fest.
Yep.
And she strategically went there with a group of people that all was carrying backpacks with TVs on it. So she created this product that people would carry. It wasn't even heavy. Carry these LED TVs on the back. And on those TVs, she had a rotating list of customers that wanted to get attention at Essence Fest.
Walking billboard.
Yeah,
Walking
basically,
billboard.
it was a digital.
How many thousands of
backpack.
people did they like get impressions on?
Yeah, it was 1 million impressions by that time.
That is a tech forward idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I've seen it before too. It's gonna catch on more. Okay.
that's
Yeah,
fire.
I think so too.
I
So that
think-
was the part. Thank you for the message. That was the partnership that we did. So I have the relationships with businesses who want to advertise but can't get to these festivals, of which I either speak at or have access to, and partnered with a company who was actually the tech company that designs it, and then we came together and put that together and talk about the user experience. I'm like, listen, ain't nobody be walking around with a big, heavy backpack. Like how transportable is it? We got insurance on these things. These are like LED screens, they're very expensive. But no, it all worked out and they're very light. And it's a real backpack. You can put stuff in there while you're carrying it around on the back.
It was eye-catching.
Yeah.
Like people are interested in that. They see somebody with a backpack.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that's a TV. They're like, no, it's a digital backpack. You can rent them out. You can get on there. Always selling. No.
When I saw one of the rappers get a piece that holds his cell phone with his video playing constantly on repeat, your agent is amazing.
So is anyone trying to break into the tech space and is having trouble trying to think about any of their transferable skills? and or conversely are thinking, is it worthwhile for me to take some certification classes, yay or nay? We would love for this to just also be a helpful time where you have an ideation session, but not just Tamante and I and Four Geeks, but like all of us could come together and help you along your career journey. I didn't say this a lot, but like one of the reasons why I invest back into the community and why I love being a teacher is that like I love giving back, and I want to make sure that people are living the most high quality of life that you want to live. So like whatever your definition of success is, I would love to help people get there. And so please use this as a platform. Not that I know all the answers, but here's a platform where we have multiple ideas, multiple experiences, and we all know that diversity of thought helps with impact, right, and driving change. So if you have any questions, this is the time. Or you can tell me, why did you come here? And if you have a direct question that I have not answered yet, I'm happy to do that as well.
I have a question for the audience in general. Would y'all like to see more like certificate programs that go to stuff like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, maybe like 4 weeks in length, not as long, but still a commitment for like maybe like a 4-week class for a month. And then, obviously during that time, it prepares you for your certification exam to where, at the end of the month, you're ready to hopefully get certified in whatever area. Is that something that y'all think there's a need for in addition to, the boot camps and the data science programs and stuff, like more certificate programs through like Microsoft, Google, etc.?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Want to try to make that happen. I just want to get the pulse of the room on that. Yeah.
Cloud certifications, there's so many resources out there and online, but I think having a place to go to,
Yeah.
like-minded people, structure, doesn't have to be super long, but
Right.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I went to the Miami College, looking for, courses in the meantime that I'm in the process of getting a job. And I was like, man, I want something like meaningful, like short, not like not a
4 or 5
program.
4 or 5 months long. Yeah.
And then,
And then,
and there's another one that it's like a year-long program. I'm like, so yeah, I'm interested.
So and look for more on that coming soon. We're trying to get that started. We run classes here a couple times a week. We're looking at trying to do AI fundamentals through Microsoft's course and curriculum. It would be the goal. So look for more information there. I want y'all to be some of the first students to fill up the class and take that certification exam once we get it going.
Yeah. So that's one thing we're thinking about looking into the certification. Unless you don't want to take a class and you want to see what transferable skills you have to get into technology already. I'm happy to help you think through that process because I think that we all add value and everyone can learn from one another. So it may not be that you need a specific skill set or you already have it. We just need to translate that on your resume and in the ways that you're talking, the ways that you elevate that on your LinkedIn. By the way, does everyone have a LinkedIn profile? Right. Okay. If your hand is not raised, please, you need LinkedIn is a new resume. Like forget your resume. People are not looking at that much anymore. You need to have your LinkedIn profiles and your people are doing everything through there. You can easy apply or just put your application in. So you really, really need a LinkedIn now. Okay. We're moving away from paper resumes, y'all. And on LinkedIn, it's dynamic. You can talk about the certifications that you have, all different kinds of things that will help people understand the skills that you bring in to the space. One other thing I want to mention about LinkedIn, and now people talk about it, is not what I was going to mention, but since we're talking about it, get recommendations on your LinkedIn around the skills that you have. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, I have not knows how many, a lot of recommendations but that allows for people to trust, believe, and find what it is that I say that I do and that I do it well, right? So it's nothing like outside validation that comes in, and the fact that you can ask someone to recommend you and they're willing to actually sit down and write something on your behalf also talks about the relationship that you've been able to cultivate with your clients or class employees, managers, et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
Sure. I have a question. I actually wrote it down. Okay, so it's a compound question.
Okay.
So how can somebody get over their fear or borderline hate of society's addiction to non-necessary technology that seems to be breaking down personal relationships? So, for instance, I have run several businesses and I have to outsource the social media part because I hate social media, but I realize that's the majority of how the customers come to the business. But it's just like, I hate it. You know what I mean? I don't carry a smartphone because I see so many people constantly checking it and checking into the phone versus checking around people around them. And so it becomes so hard to just really become part of the tech, even though understanding how necessary it has become to our society. But yeah, that's one part. And the second part is, how can we work, or what do you see as, not necessarily, like if somebody wants to be in the addiction side, to help people not be addicted?
Okay. Okay, I think those questions are somewhat related, so let's get to it. I also have a love-hate relationship with social media. In fact, I was not, other than LinkedIn, I was not on social media for a long time. And I'm the oldest of 4 girls. And my younger sisters were like, you need to get on social media. And they started my social media accounts for me. And I had been running it actually for like a year or two. And then finally, because of circumstance, I decided to take it over. One of the things that I am starting to appreciate about social media, there's a few things. One is I have friends all over the world, and yeah, I would love to be able to like talk to them and like see them as often as I can, but you know, we're adults, we got families, we have other obligations and priorities. I can't just always get up and fly and go see them and vice versa. So it's nice to see what is going on in their lives when they're putting on their stories, when they're saying these amazing accolades that I may not have had privy to understand in advance because they're living their lives and things are happening. So it's great for people to just say like, man, I saw that. So this will happen. Like I'll put stuff on social and it'll trigger maybe a friend of mine to be like, hey man, congratulations. I didn't know that you were doing that. That's so dope. Like, so it gives a way for me to communicate easily with people without having to take so much time individually. Don't be wrong. I love individual one-on-one. There's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and we have competing priorities. The other piece is that the knowledge sharing that can happen in social media, especially when we're talking about areas in places where people might feel isolated. I think that when we are in urban environments that lend itself to diversity, we take it for granted that everyone has that diversity of thought, diversity of people around them, but they don't. And so oftentimes they might be the only person who's LGBTQ or the only person who's of color, who's whatever they are. They could be the only person in that particular environment. And social media allows them to say, here's another group. Here's a way for me to connect with people who are like me across countries or whatever. And that could be that connection could be the thin line between whether this person's going to be here today or tomorrow, right? And so like those are other things that I've seen. And then there's been, we see it going on now that there is a censoring of thought, there's a censoring of media, there's a censoring of authorship that is happening. We know here in Florida, but it's happening really in many places, not just here in the United States, across the world. But because we can be on these platforms, we can actually counterbalance that. We can say like, that's not an accurate statement. Here's the real history. We can find out from people who are going through it. So it gives us a way to connect globally, I think, in ways we've never been before that have allowed people to understand and have empathy for experiences. That being said, it is a tool. It's a tool. So those are the things that I think are good about it. Okay. Now, here are the things I do think are bad. There's an algorithm out there where it is easy to play into people's negative emotions. There's research that says if you play into people's negative emotions, they're much more attached to the negativity than the positivity. And so that's why,
Even media, that's even like the media news story.
right. So that's why you have so much negativity that's happening in the algorithm. And so people who get elevated on certain platforms is because they're purposely divisive, because they understand that that's what the algorithm is looking for. And as revenue generated, so you're thinking to yourself, well, you know, how are these media companies making money? Yeah, advertising is one, but actually the main way they make money is selling your data. So all the content that you're putting up on these social media sites, all of it is data that they're selling to other folks. Data on you, data on this, data on blah, blah, blah. And then data, you, my friends, are worth a lot of money. You don't know that, but you're worth a lot of money. You're worth a lot of money. And every day when we go on there, we say something, we give content, but they want you to continue to come back. And the way that you come back is because it's negative, because you feel drawn to the things that are negative. It's just, that is research of how our brain works, that like our adrenaline is so high when we're angry. So just think about that. Like when you're angry, like your whole body feels it. When you're happy, you're alone, you're like, oh, life's good. But when you're angry, you're like, yeah. Right? And that negativity, that feeling makes you, because it's so strong, makes you connected to the thing that made you that angry. There's a reason why people go back and forth in abusive relationships. There's a reason, there's a psychology behind why that happens all the time, oftentimes. So I agree that there's obviously a lot of negativity that's going on. I believe and I hope that we can get, this is my utopian side. And by the way, I have a motto called peace, positive education always causes elevation. So I do tend to think more on the positive. I'm realistic, but I try to think on the positive side. What I'm hoping is that eventually, collectively, we decide that empathy and treating people like human beings, being human-centric and human-forward is much more important than divisiveness, than calling people out their names, and being disparaging and being violent. We do know that there are societies that have been like that and are successful in that way. Unfortunately, this country was not. This country was forged in violence, and so therefore it is what it is. But I hope that the more we have these conversations and these dialogues, that's the other thing I would say about social media, you can find yourself in spaces where people are thinking more human-centric, who are thinking more empathy forward. There's a lot of discussion now around what is it like to be a human-centric leader? What is it like to be an empathetic leader? What is it like to live your life authentically, empathetically? So you can find those kinds of spaces and that thought and that ideology that's happening. That's one of the work. So yes, I use technology as the tool to get in oftentimes to people's companies. But when I do strategic thinking and visioning, we come from a human-centered design platform. So we say, like, do your employees feel like they're valued? Do you know anything about your employees? Do you know what their passions are? Because if you remember the first story I told you, the reason I know what to do and why we were so successful is because I found out who my students were. And that's how I am with my employees. Right. But I don't even like to say that because it makes it sound like I went down. I meant like, I know who you are. I know who your passion is. I hear you. There's a meeting of the, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I just say me first. I hear you, Tomas. Yeah, but like, what is the passion? Like, why are they here? Are they here because they just want a paycheck, or are they here because they really believe in the mission? What makes them happy? Do they care about a job? Because some people don't. Like, people like, listen, what I care about is my family and chilling with my friends. So that's cool. How can you make that person happy and still productive in your company, right? Because there's something beautiful about saying, like, nah, man, like, I just need money to live, but what I really want to do is chill with my friends and my family.
I just wanted to add to the whole conversation around meeting people where they're at. Like, you consider social media as digital cities.
Mm-hmm.
These different social media channels are cities that are online, but there are also suburbs online. And those suburbs are where people own their own website, they own their own content. They write their own terms of service, and you have a lot of land out there, and there's a lot of money, and they also meet in person. So there's a lot of people online on the internet publishing content who interact that are not quote unquote on social media, but they're leaving comments and interacting with people through software, open source software like WordPress, where there's like the whole blogging wave that happened before social media. that's a whole online community, the suburbs of the internet that people don't talk about because it's out. You got to go out and drive and find them. You got to know what website is it, because it's not on Twitter. You can always repost on Twitter and on social media, but people live out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
That's where you got the land.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, open source WordPress.
43% of all websites are WordPress, by the way.
I didn't know that. Well, by the way, Patal's the WordPress guru if you haven't picked up. So if anyone needs a WordPress site,
It's a great question.
yes, Melissa.
I
And thank you so much for those questions.
finished my boot camp, right? UX UI design. I've been looking for almost 2 months, finding all this, but I don't know if should I pursue that still or should I go to startup and offer myself for free, just for educational purposes, or do I volunteering, or what do I do? Because I don't, it's been 2 months.
So let's
And I know the economy and people have been telling me like it's gonna be like this for 7 months or up to a year like this, So or do I keep with educational courses? What do I do? Because right now I'm like, okay, I'm struggling a little bit and it's frustrating.
So I believe in a multi-pronged approach. So don't stop continuing your education, especially if you're enjoying it. But yes, go to startups. Do not offer your services for free. Think about what a free structure could look like. If the startup is truly struggling, then maybe you can offer your services for equity if you believe in what the mission and the vision of the startup is and you think it's a viable startup. I cannot tell you the amount of people who ask me about UI, UX designers, like literally almost every space I'm in. From a startup perspective, and I'll let Tamante answer from a tech company perspective, but from my perspective as a startup, especially folks who are designing apps, they must tell me all the time they're looking for UI, UX. Where they're looking are like places like Fiverr and some of those, what was the other one? Upwork, thank you. Upwork, so like those kind of, so if you have stuff there that you can showcase and show your design, so like use the coursework to build your portfolio. So if you haven't started building your portfolio, definitely start building your portfolio, keep building it out. But certainly start going to a lot of these tech entrepreneur networking events. People are looking for UI, UX designers all the time. I mean, they're looking for a lot of stuff, but I hear UI, UX a lot.
At least 3 years of experience. Of course, I don't have it.
Well, apply anyway.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I'm just saying, just apply anyway. Yeah, Tamante.
Also, to use this time to invest in yourself. As many free or low cost learning resources or certification resources. So like Microsoft, if you go to our learn.microsoft.com site, that is where you'll find we've got over 4,000 learning modules, self-paced, asynchronous, so you take them on your own time. These learn.microsoft.com. These courses are completely free. Upon completion, you get a learning badge. That's just one resource, for example. The same courses that you would take on learn.microsoft.com are the same courses that we take internally when we're working to get a Microsoft certification. So it's the same stuff, and it's free. To take the actual certification there's a cost depending on the cert, but all the learning is free. So that's one way, and you literally can keep the transcript, the learning transcript, all of them, of the courses you've taken and everything. And that's one way to kind of enhance your profile.
I do pay for the LinkedIn Premium.
That too. Okay, so that's another one. That's not free though, but that's still worth it. That's good.
Yeah.
Because that's another learning resource that you can take advantage of. And then of course there's other resources with Google, Apple, Amazon, etc. So I would say do that.
Okay.
You might look up in 4 or 5 months and be like, man, I've learned all this and I've gained all this, and really be able to make an impression on some of the places you apply.
And just to piggyback on listen to it or not, is I may or may not be the person to get it right. But there's a poem that Monty knows. It's If by Rudyard Kipling. And there's a line in that poem that says, you can build the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. Blah, 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 blah. Like, good things will happen. Think of it like you're a farmer, you're planting seeds. The minute right now may be unforgiving, it may be hard. But fill it with some distance run. And you can do that by taking the turn. All of those things will pay off. So kudos to you for trying, keep trying. It'll work.
The one other thing I would mention, I think this, we don't talk about this a lot, and this happens entrepreneur to entrepreneur, often bartering. So offering your services for something back in exchange. I mentioned equity, but it could be something else that somebody else can do for you that you're looking for. I don't know what that thing is, but like, you're like, man, I always needed XYZ. And the person can do that, and they also need a UI UX, and you can barter and exchange services that way. Just another thought.
Equity is a really good idea here. I mean, I actually never really thought of that.
Mhm.
We're a boot camp, but we have a lot of graduates looking for jobs. And they can offer their services in exchange for equity in the startups that are here.
That's right, in exchange for equity, right? That's an interesting conversation. Don't tell what Kwamara said to it, because not every entrepreneur is going to want to give up equity, but it is at least a conversation to have. And just look up, this is a great question for ChatGPT. What does it mean to get equity in a startup? What are some of my options? Can I get into options? Can I get stocks? I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions that you can ask around structuring an equity payback versus a fiscal monetary payback curve. So just something to think about.
Freelance work as well for right now.
That part.
Yes, Upwork, Fiverr, however else. Build out your website, portfolio,
Everybody who I've been paying to do stuff with our work and with like other stuff that I'm saying, explaining, has been pretty.
Yes, I love my freelancers.
Most of them are. One of them just finished the coding school. Just a couple months ago. So,
I'm sorry, Lou.
yeah, so put yourself out there because we're looking for. There's folks like myself, entrepreneurs, business owners, folks in the building that are looking for talented people, and we don't want to pay premium prices, right? But we want to pay something that's fair that reflects your skill, your talent that we can afford. Right? So you'll feel a need for a lot of people coming in at a reasonable price point budget that where you can provide work for someone without hitting them over the head.
I love I'm an entrepreneur, so I love anyone going into entrepreneurship. Even if you decide to get a W-2, like work as a job, why can't you freelance on the side, period? Go talk to your tax person, your accountant I suggest creating an LLC, but I always tell people talk to your tax person first about what kind of tax risks you will have if you are an independent contractor versus if you set up an LLC, because you can write off most of your business expenses and all kinds of stuff. So just another little thought, freelance, don't just freelance, just think about it a little bit more strategically so that you are lowering your tax liability and increasing the amount of money that you bring in. Okay, perfect. Love it. Yes.
Just to add more advice. If you want to work in the tech space, you can work in the tech space, and you can be a person in the tech space. It doesn't have to be the way you make money. You could make money doing whatever you're doing, but you're still a person in the tech space who makes money by working in it. You know what I mean? So don't think just because you're not making money,
It's not working.
you are.
That's a good point. Thank
It's like
you.
find a gap job, temporary job, something simple. Get your mind over expenses, and keep applying. Fiverr and all those programs.
All righty. Any other questions, last comments?
somebody suggested I should come.
Okay.
And so it's into the Instagram. I pulled up. But is it possible? A quick overview.
Sure, and also we just recorded this too, so it's also it'll be linked on my YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you want to go back and figure it out, but just really quickly, the reason why we're having this is we're talking about how we can have transferable skills that can bring you into the technology space. So, for example, you could be in sales, you could be a UI UX designer, any kind of sort of creative person. There's lots of design opportunities. You could be someone who's a customer success manager. You could be someone who works in HR. So there's just like different ways that you can get into tech without having to necessarily go through and get these tech-specific certifications. So that was one thing that I was saying. And on the flip side, I was also saying, if you have tech certifications and you're having a hard time getting into, the tech industry as we define it today, that there are multiple industries outside of technology that still need your skill set. So if you're a data analysis, you know how to put a WordPress together, if you know how to run SQL inquiries, you know how to deal with big data bases, there are many organizations that are not necessarily tech companies that still need those skill sets. And so that was one of the things I was talking about. And the reason why I'm here is I was basically saying that I run an education technology business consulting company. I'm often an advisor for education tech and tech startups, and also invest back into the tech community as someone who's not a tech person. I don't know how to code. I don't know anything. Like a phone is cracked. It's like, 2010. I have no idea. Everyone's like, when you gonna get a new phone? Anyway. So all that to say that you can still be really successful in these fields without necessarily having to have those kind of certifications, because we really want to make sure that people understand that technology is really about accessibility, that anyone can have, and anyone and everyone should be able to have a voice around how tech is evolving and what kind of ecosystem we're creating as it relates to the tech and really like the world. Like technology kind of makes the world go round.
And to
Yeah, you lost your thought.
nah,
This is the same space. What you gonna say?
what she said earlier was someone told me a long time ago. Should deal with things on how do you think it should be, but how in reference to her saying, hate technology. You can't fight against the current.
I don't think it was more like how do you sort of navigate, right? I mean, I want to speak on your behalf. But.
Yeah, it was just how to change your mindset when it comes to it and understand that it's why it definitely is how we are today, and I can't really control how other people use it, but to still see the good and why I'm doing it.
Yeah. Great. And I hope this will help start that dialogue, and I'm happy to also continue to have that conversation if that's helpful. All right, I think we are coming up on time. Thank you all so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys learned something. It was worthwhile for you to come out on a Thursday night. It's now become rainy. Tamonte, when's the next one?
Yes. Next event, we're going to talk about metamorphosis in the metaverse. When is it? It's
October 20.
September.
Oh, September.